Elizabeth has a broadcast quality voice. Now, when you hear her on the radio, if you're just standing here talking to her, you may not pay very much attention. But when you hear her on the radio, she has a dynamite broadcast quality voice. It is absolutely superb. So next time you get a chance, if you haven't paid attention.
This is a Global Tel-Link prepaid call from
Kent Hovind.
All right, we're going to pick
an
this call
inmate
up.
at the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's
Say yes,
Office.
pick it up.
This call will be recorded and monitored. Your advance pay account balance is $21.05. For customer assistance, billing inquiries, or to block future calls, dial 1-877-650-4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
Hey, good morning. Kent Hovind calling here.
Good morning, Dr. Dino, as you are affectionately known by Coach Dave Dobbin and several others. It's good to talk to you. What a blessing to be able to hear your voice today on the broadcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Well, as good as you can be in county jail, I guess. I've been here 7 months. It's getting a little old.
What county jail are you in right now, just to get that clear, and then we're going to move on to some more important things.
Well, I'm in the Santa Rosa County Jail, which is one of the counties in the tip of the panhandle of Florida, right not too far from Pensacola, where I've lived for 25 years.
Boy. All right, well, listen, Dr. Dino, Kent Hovind is your name, evangelist, pastor, Bible teacher. For those of you who don't know who he is, and have not had the opportunity to experience some of your teaching prior to your being trumped up on charges and arrested and convicted 99 months ago, and having spent the past 99 months in prison, a great patriot and a great servant of the Lord, Kent Hovind is. And we are working to try to bring the world's attention to the travesty of justice that's happening in the life of this servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. And he's calling us from prison at this moment. And so our time is going to be very precious. But Kent, I want you to tell people exactly what's happening. You were arrested for and convicted of the issues regarding tax with the IRS. I understand they stormed your house, arrested you, stormed your bedroom, arrested your wife, etc. But I want everyone to please listen to this man as he tells us exactly what went on. Kent, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you.
Well, thank you so much, brother, for taking my call. It is a sad story. I think the world needs to hear it, not necessarily for my sake, but like the Apostle Paul in Philippians chapter 1, he said, his bonds have fallen out to the furtherance of the gospel, which is all I want. I want everybody to get saved. Make a short story just a little longer. My name's Kent Hovind, Hovind. If you type that in, your computer will melt. The atheists go crazy. They hate me. I was born and raised in Peoria, Illinois. I became a high school science and math teacher for 15 years, and 25 years ago became an evangelist, speaking all over the world on the subject of science and the Bible, particularly dinosaurs, creation versus evolution. I did 100 debates against atheists at universities. Many of those are up on YouTube or on drdino.com. I slaughtered them sweetly in Christian love. I did twice at Rutgers University, not too far from you there. I don't think that professor will ever do that again, but it was fun. It was fun while it lasted. Anybody who believes that came from a rock needs a little help, and I can help them or try. So I take the position that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. God made the world in 6 days, literal, normal, 24-hour days. And this all happened about 6,000 years ago when God made Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, which is what the Bible dates would add up to, about 6,000. Then everything was destroyed by a big flood in the days of Noah, about 4,400 years ago. And the flood explains all the geology we see today, the layers of the earth, the canyons, the coal formations, stuff like that. All that I cover in my seminar. Well, I thought everything was going fine. I started in 1989. And we began as a church ministry, a Christian ministry. And mid-90s, I started getting a couple letters from the IRS saying something, and they were never signed. So I answered anyway. I said, "Excuse me, what do you want? You know, I've asked people what is required of a church ministry as far as taxes go, because I certainly believe in obeying the law. I think I've said for centuries, for decades. I said I think everybody should obey the law, including the government, especially the government."
You're right about that as well. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I thought things were fine. You know? So. The IRS Booklet 517 says if you have questions about your taxes, write to an IRS enrolled agent, an attorney, and one other one, a CPA. So I wrote to three and paid them each $50 or whatever they charged. I said, "I'd like you to look over our ministry. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong regarding taxes?" And they all wrote back a 10 or 15 or 20-page letter with all sorts of attachments saying, "You're doing fine. You're not breaking any laws." So I send all that to the IRS and say, "Look, if I don't hear from you in 20 days, I'm going to assume I'm doing everything fine and keep going." So I didn't hear from them ever. I still never gotten one single letter from the IRS answering any of my questions, except they came and raided our place in 2004. They raided our ministry, stole a bunch of money out of the safe that was saving up for a project, and
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
And took all kinds of legal documents and other documents, all the ministry records, just took everything, 42 boxes of it. They spent all day ransacking the place. Next day I did a radio program that I did every day for 3 hours on creation versus evolution. And somebody called in and said, "Kent, why don't you pray for them?" I said, "Okay." So I prayed. I said, "Lord, you protected your children all through the Bible. I want you to handle these folks that came against me. I don't know what they want. I can't handle them. They're way too powerful for me. I turn them over to you. You judge them as you see fit." Something to that effect. By the way, I got 3 years in prison for that prayer. Because they said I was threatening an IRS agent in the performance of his duty or something like that. Anyway, so gee whiz, I thought, now what? What do you want? So I found out the next year, 2005, they had a grand jury convened against me because a friend of mine was called down to testify. So I sent 3 different affidavits to the grand jury saying, "Would you please let me come testify? I want to, what do you want out of me anyway? What am I doing wrong? Please let me come down. Here's what I understand." The third affidavit is up on 2peter3.com and quite a few other websites. It's 10 pages. If people want to read that and repost it, please do. I said, what do you want from me? Where's the law that I'm breaking? No response, ever. Actually, I sent it to the grand jury foreman, and the U.S. attorney took it away from the grand jury foreman. Wouldn't let him have it or read it. On the way out the door, my daughter-in-law sitting there as they walked by, and the U.S. attorney said, she was angry. She said, "I didn't want them to have this." Why would you not want them to have the truth? Anyway, so I thought, gee whiz, now what? Everything's fine, I think, because the grand jury, nothing happened. A year later, July 13th, the day before my wife's and I anniversary, 2006, they stormed onto the property like SWAT team, like Barney Fife and Andy Griffith with their guns drawn,
Right.
And I'm reading my Bible 7:30 in the morning, getting ready for staff devotions. My wife is sleeping after finally getting to sleep at 3 o'clock. She had broke her tailbone years ago and just has a really rough time getting to sleep. And so they surround me, and a couple of IRS agents handcuff me. I said, what do you want? We have a warrant for your arrest. They showed me the warrant. I said, where's the affidavit attached to the warrant? The warrant's no good without an affidavit. We take that up with the judge. Same thing when they raided the ministry 2 years ago. I kept asking, where's the affidavit? Hello, this isn't a real warrant unless there's an affidavit. Well, of course, they didn't show it to me. They didn't have one, I don't think. So they arrest my wife. Agents surround her bed. She's in her nightgown, is sound asleep. She's 5 feet tall, 110 pounds. A grandmother, piano player, piano teacher, most godly woman you'd ever want to meet. So they arrest her, won't let her put a robe on, won't let her get dressed, won't let her even go to the bathroom, handcuff her in her nightgown and take her down to...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
I thought, are we in communist China or something? What is going on here, So we were both arrested and arraigned in front of a magistrate for 3 charges. One of them was not withholding taxes from employees. 12 counts of not withholding taxes from employees. Well, churches aren't required to do that, and why do you have to come arrest me for that? Why don't you write me a letter and say, hey, let me teach you how to do this. Let's talk about it. Call me in, let's talk. That's the first indication I had that there was any problem, okay? They never sent me a letter, never said, let's talk. This ought to be civil, not criminal. You don't have to come arrest somebody at gunpoint for that. Anyway, so that was one charge. Second charge was 45 counts, total 58, 45 counts of structuring, which I had never heard of. They said, yeah, you withdrew money out of your bank in amounts less than $10,000. Oh, okay, and that's against the law to take your money out of the bank. It was so bizarre. I couldn't believe this was happening. Like, you've got to be kidding. I'm being arrested for taking money out of our own money out of our own bank to pay our own bills. What is wrong with this picture? So, and the last count number 58, was threatening this IRS agent. And I thought, when did I do that? So, anyway, we ended up going to trial. After 2 weeks of the U.S. attorneys putting on their dog and pony show, I thought, my attorney said, okay, we're not even going to give a defense. It is so obvious you did nothing wrong. There's no law broken here. Don't even give a defense. You're innocent until proven guilty in America. I said, okay, if that's what you think. And so then after trial, my attorney's reading the jury instructions. And he said, now, jury, the law says if a person takes out 2 or more transactions in one day that total over $10,000, but the transactions are under $10,000, these laws were designed to catch drug dealers who are dealing in cash. And so, you know, if you take out 9,000 in the morning and 9,000 in the afternoon, you know, now you have structured your transactions to avoid the bank filling out some paper for over 10,000. Well, our transactions were under 10,000, and they were 12 days apart. One single transaction every 12 days. This is not 2 transactions in one day, and it's not hiding any drug money. And so the U.S. attorney objected to my attorney reading the jury instructions. She said, I object. And so the judge went back and changed the jury instructions to say, if you find out the Hovinds took out less than 10,000, you have to find them guilty. This would be similar to the law saying you can't go over 70 miles an hour on this road. And so you're stopped going 69 miles an hour, and they want to give you a ticket for avoiding speeding. Okay. It is just that stupid in my mind and in everybody else's mind. You're trying to avoid. It's not drug money. This is ministry money for ministry bills. So anyway, I'm found guilty, and the judge said at sentencing, Mr. Hovind, your crime is worse than rape. She gave me 10 years in prison. I've already served 98 months. A couple days ago, it'll be 99 when I go to trial. My crime is what crime at all? I don't understand. So, I'm taken straight to prison. My wife is sentenced to 1 year and a day, and her attorney fights it for a while and gets it delayed, and finally she ends up going for 9 months to prison. The most sweetest. We've been married 41 years. The sweetest, most godly woman you'd ever want to meet. She was terrorized, of course. 5 foot tall, and going off to prison. But God used all this, just like half the Bible is written from prison or captivity or by folks who've been one of those places. That's God has used it in 1,000 good ways. I've written 37 books since I've been in prison.
Wow!
Many of them are up on 2peter3.com or other websites. So God's used it in a great way. I think people have heard the gospel that never would have heard otherwise. And I've led about 700 men to the Lord since I've been in, and answered, I think, over 17,000 letters people write. So as much as I hate it, I'm ready to go home. Well, the story's almost done, brother. You've been very patient. Then, after trial, they said, now all that money that was structured over all those years, because we stopped using cash in 2003, the new folks that helped us manage the ministry created trusts and said, okay, everything's in trust, get credit cards. Before that, it was part of Faith Baptist Fellowship. So we get credit cards and stop using cash. 3 years later, they arrest us for these cash transactions from 3, 4, 5 years ago. I said, what on earth is wrong? We had bought quite a few older houses in the neighborhood to try to expand the ministry. We were fixing them up for staff housing. then if we needed the property, we'd have it to be able to expand onto. So we're hiring college students to go down and get stuff.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I'll call right back when it goes dead, brother. I have to call in less than a minute to continue the interview.
And we will receive your call when you call right back. I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask, but continue until your time expires, and we will continue with your return call.
All right. So anyway, they said, now you owe that money that was structured. You owe to the government $400,000. I said, what? It was spent 3 years ago. It's gone. What do you mean I owe it to the government? But then they found out I don't own anything. I took a vow of poverty. I live in a church parsonage. I drive a church van. I don't own anything. So they said, we want to seize the church ministry property to pay this tax bill. Well, it's not a tax bill. It's structuring. I said, you got to be kidding. Okay, let me call right back and finish this up. Right back, brother.
All right, we will wait for your call. And to everyone listening, you need to know that we're taking a live call from the Santa Rosa County Jail Sheriff's Department in the Florida area, Panhandle of Florida area. We're talking with Kent Hovind, who's been incarcerated now for 9 years, as he's just explained, regarding tax charges that have been leveled against him by the IRS. And he's going through the list of how those charges
prepaid call from
were leveled against him, and you're going to hear the operator from the prison facilitating the call coming through. I will continue to talk during this process, and we will continue our interview with Kent Hovind as soon as he is reconnected again. But we are making every attempt to try to bring exposure to what has happened to Kent Hovind with his Baptist Faith Fellowship Church there that has been convicted of not paying taxes and also of structuring, as he has outlined, of taking money out of the bank that does not equate to $10,000, raising the ire of the IRS to question that amount being taken out. And so he's been convicted on that as well. And also a prayer that was uttered, which could very well be considered biblically an imprecatory prayer. However, it was not that. But there are prayers that the Bible does allow, which are called imprecatory prayers, where you can pray for those that you might consider your adversaries, and it's all biblically sound under the prayers of David. He was sentenced to 3 years for that prayer on a radio broadcast. And so we are awaiting for him to be reunited. Do we have him now? All right. Kent Hovind, do we have you again, sir?
Yes, sir. Good to be with you.
All right. Let's get started with a couple of things here. The IRS began to send you notices regarding your failure to pay taxes or at least meet their tax code. You then took those letters to a CPA, a certified public accountant, and had them review your tax system as you were operating a church, a not-for-profit organization. And what I understand your initial comments were is that the CPA said that you were in line with IRS and compliant with their rules. Is that right?
Well, yes, not only a CPA, but a IRS enrolled agent and a tax attorney. All three of them said everything's fine.
So now, how do we get from an IRS agent, a tax attorney, and a CPA saying that your tax structure at your church was fine? How do we get from there to them 2 years later, if I'm not mistaken, after those letters started coming in? It was 2 years intervening that they then, at 7:30 in the morning, break down your door, or at least they come in stormtrooper fashion. How do we get from there to the initial arrest?
I absolutely cannot comprehend it, brother. It just blows my mind. I don't know what their thinking was. The things that the letters were about were my personal taxes. They arrested me instead, without any warning and without any letters ahead of time, for not withholding taxes from employees, which, if you look at the Internal Revenue Code, which is like trying to understand a bowl of spaghetti. I mean, it's so complicated, all these crazy laws. One of the laws talks about withholding taxes if you have a contract with them, like a W-2 form or something. See, I don't do any of that. I traveled and preached. I spoke 900 times a year. I was busy traveling and preaching. I flew 4.7 million miles on Delta, plus other airlines. So the pastor of the church from 99 to 2002, that was his job to handle all that. And then Remedies at Law took over after our pastor. We had to close the church down. He had a stroke, nearly killed him. Remedies at Law took over, and they told me what I should do, and I was following their instructions very carefully with regarding taxes. I'm trying to obey their crazy laws, and their laws are just really complicated. So if you have a contract, then you have to withhold blah, blah, blah. Well, we didn't have a contract, and nobody was an employee.
Well, let me just back this up so we can get an understanding here. So I'm sure of what you're saying. First of all, if you are a not-for-profit organization or a church, and you have employees working for you, they have a trust estate tax structure where you are required to withhold taxes to pour into their trust estate. However, if people that work for the church are individual contractors, for instance, if they're like an air conditioner repair person or a person that comes around regularly and repairs the roof, then they're individual contractors having their own individual corporations, then you're not required to hold taxes to payments made to air conditioner repair persons. So is that what you're saying? That was what was happening? People that work for your church were contractors in their own right. Is that what I hear you saying?
I don't know if that's the right word or not. I don't understand all that. That was somebody else's job. That was the pastor's job to handle all that. There are any number of ways it can be handled. If a kid comes and mows your grass,
right,
you pay him $20.
Right.
Do you have a contract with him? Is he a corporation? Well, no. He's mowing your grass, and you hand him $20.
Right.
So, to this day, I do not believe anything was done illegal or unlawful. It was perfectly fine, legitimate. It's a church ministry. It's not a 501c3 corporation. It's a legitimate biblical church ministry. But that's water under the bridge now. When they arrested me, it was for things that they had never written to me about or asked me about.
Well, what did they do in the intervening 2 years? Did you hear anything from them when they first began? And how were they made aware of the fact that you had employees or you had contractors? How did they first become aware of that? And then what took place in the intervening 2 years after they had no further contact with you, either in the mail or personal visits? How did they become aware of all of this, and then 2 years later, they, without warning, come in and arrest you?
I don't know. There are rumors that the college right just a mile away from me, the Christian college, is the one that turned me in. And
this call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
I think they're pretty substantiated rumors, but I will find out Judgment Day what happened. The only thing that happened in those intervening years, and it was like probably 6 years since I sent the letters in from the CPA, etc. That was back in 98 or 99. I thought everything was fine. The only thing that happened was the grand jury, which then they did not indict. So I thought, everything's fine. I'm traveling back preaching again. And all of a sudden they show up and arrest me. Well, now they said all this money that was structured belongs to the government, which is crazy, retarded. Anybody with a brain can see this.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this on the structuring charges. I know for the prayer, which we're going to discuss a little bit later on, which I could easily refer to as imprecatory, however, and biblically sound. But let's look, you got 3 years for that charge. And was that 3 years to be served concurrently or consecutively? And then on the structuring charge, which seems to be from your introductory statements earlier, that was if you will, the meat of their argument and case against you, the structuring charges that they brought against you. What amount of time were you given for that particular count in particular? And I think there were either 57 or 45 counts of structuring that they leveled against you. What was the amount of time given for that, and why was that so important for them?
Well, I don't recall exactly how the time was given. I think it was 10 years for the structuring, and 10 years for the not withholding taxes, and they ran concurrently, I believe. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that.
All right.
There's one more important point to bring out, then you can, I'll take questions on the rest.
Okay.
After they said, okay, now you owe $400,000 to the government, I said, well, I don't have anything. I don't have a...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
They said, we want to seize the church property. So that Glenn Stoll, Remedies at Law, the trustee, began saying, well, excuse me, that's not his property. You can't seize his property. Our property, the church property, for a personal tax bill. So they fought that for several years. And Paul Hansen came in as another trustee, and they were fighting that. And meanwhile, I'm being transferred all over the country. I've been moved 23 times with the Bureau of Prisons and various transfer centers, now to Santa Rosa County Jail. So I've been moved all over the place. I was up in Berlin, New Hampshire, and they're going to seize the church property. They went down to the courthouse and changed the title to say that the judge made a ruling and said there is no church property, there is no church, there is no trust. That's all Kent Hovind's personally. That's like you working at Walmart and they say, okay, you own Walmart, so we're going to seize Walmart and pay your tax bill. Well, it's that bizarre. So I'm up there in New Hampshire. I prayed. I said, Lord, I don't understand.
I don't want to leave that point. How, if the church was indeed an incorporated church, and whatever state incorporated in, it would not have been your personal property. It would have been an incorporation given to the church in order for it to function. So how would a judge rule that it was personally your property?
Well, churches don't have to incorporate. They can if they want, 501c3, but 508c1a says churches are mandatory exceptions. And exactly what is a church and who gets to define that? Does the government define what a church is? I don't think so. But the pastor, Faith Baptist Fellowship, who had originally for several years run everything, he was not an incorporated church. I don't understand all that part of it either. But they said, we want to seize this ministry property for this tax bill. So I'm up in New Hampshire praying. I said, Lord, what do I do? I don't understand this, Father. Send somebody. Next day, a guy moves into my room, into my cell, and we don't have cells, like a big dormitory at the prison camps. There's a black guy from Washington, D.C. He's a Muslim. Turns out he's a real estate genius, and we got along just fabulously. We were roommates together for over a year. He looked over my case. He said, Kent, you didn't break any laws. I said, I know. He said, what are they seizing the church property for? So he went back and read the stuff. He said, well, the judge ruled there is no church. It's all yours personally. So you have a right, if the case is still pending, you have the right to file a Liz pendens saying litigation is still pending. Let the buyer beware, because they were trying to sell the property. So I had filed a Bivens suit. He helped me file a Bivens suit, it's called, against the South Carolina prison, because after I left there, they kept my legal box for 20 months, a year and a half. Here I'm trying to fight my case, and they've got all my legal files. So I filed a lawsuit against them for delaying everything, and then I filed Liz pendens, litigation pending, and now they want to, they brought a new charge against me as of last July or August for mail fraud for mailing a Liz pendens across a state line. It carries a 20-year sentence. That's 6 charges they're charging me with.
So these are new charges. These are new charges that are being added now after you are coming close to your release date on the initial structuring and withholding taxes charge. But let me ask you this question, and I want to get back to this Liz pending and why was it considered fraud. But were you controversial at any point? I mean, the creation, evolution teachings is controversial. Did that raise the government's ire in any way? Were you politically controversial in any way? Obviously, because I don't know of any church in America that does not have similar kinds of problems, or at least issues with the government as far as taxes and how they handle their incorporation or non-incorporation as a religious corporation. In fact, in the state of New York, where I'm at, if you were to, the judges have two sets of tax laws or corporation laws. One is the not-for-profit or the religious corporations taxes structure, and then they have the structure for everything else. So most churches do exactly what you're doing. So what was the problem? Why is there a problem?
Well, as far as controversial, absolutely. What I teach on creation versus evolution is extremely controversial in some people's minds, and they hate me for it. I think that's good. I mean, if you read the Bible, they hated almost all the prophets. You know, Jeremiah was thrown into the prison, and Ezekiel, and anybody that preaches the truth, like John the Baptist, telling the king, you're not supposed to have that woman. Yeah, they get mad. I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I'm a really nice, friendly fella, but they really got angry. Especially in my seminar, which is on Dr. Dino, my creation seminar, part 5, that's what really fired him up, apparently. Because in there I say there are only two philosophies of life, creation and evolution. If creation is true, then there's a creator, and he decides what's right and wrong. He makes the rules. He owns the place. If evolution is true, then man makes the rules. It's called humanism. I said that that's the only two philosophies of government. One philosophy is, hey, there's a creator, and we're endowed...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
We're endowed by our creator with certain rights, and the founders of our country started with that assumption, that we are created by God, and that's why our government has been so wonderful for 200 years, based on creation. But if evolution is true, then man makes the rules, not God. Let me call back one more time, brother, if you don't mind.
We will wait for your third call as well. We'll hang right in here waiting for you. I have several questions. One, I want to talk to you about the list pending on the property there in South Carolina, and how the informing the public of that becomes fraud from prison. So we want to ask those questions further, and then we want to try to determine exactly what has been the appeal process of this matter. It certainly will.
All right.
Are you back with us again now? Kent, are you there? Let's call back again. Okay. All right. So these are questions that I want to raise. One is, what has been the appeal process? Generally, if there is a miscarriage of justice, if there is one I that has not been dotted or one T that has not been crossed, an appellate lawyer looks at a situation and, of course, brings you back to court. We want to ask about that. We want to also ask about 3-year sentence on the imprecatory, or the prayer that was uttered in a broadcast that's done routinely a zillion times a day all over the planet. Why there was a sentence associated with that as well. So we are waiting for the return call. We believe we hear the prison operator now making contact to our switchboard connection system. And as soon as that happens, we're going to pick up Dr. Dino, as he's affectionately known, and Kent Hovind, what is his name, to further the conversation about, and try to get to some answers about exactly what's going on. You're listening to the Manning Report today. We have been preempted by our interview from prison. Dr. Dino, Kent Hovind is his real name. And so therefore our procedures are a little bit different today in what we're doing. We'll have Michael Massey coming up in this hour as well, amid a ton of other things that we're going to be broadcasting. Al Sharpton, who also owes a ton of taxes, is now under pressure from powerful New York attorney Sanford Rubenstein, who says since he has been found not to be indicted on rape charges against one of Al Sharpton's handmaidens, that Al Sharpton now owes him an apology. We'll be looking at this as it develops. We got precious moments with Kent Hovind. Kent, I was raising the question a few moments ago about, I want to get to the prayer that you prayed, and then the list pending charge that's now pending. I want to get to, why would you have been sentenced even if you have prayed against someone? The Bible permits us to pray imprecatory prayers that David prayed, that is biblically sound and within our religious scope. You did not do that. You simply prayed a prayer that included them, which is done all of the time. I mean, even when the President of the United States gets up and prays about our enemies or prays about someone within Congress. It's done all the time. Why were you sentenced to 3 years for that prayer?
I cannot comprehend that at all. Why? I don't remember the specific prayer. It's probably up online someplace. I don't know what website has it. I haven't seen a computer in 8 years. But it boggles everybody's mind. Like, you've got to be kidding. They're calling this obstructing or hindering the government in the due process or something for praying for him because the guy feels threatened. I don't know.
Was it a threatening prayer? Did you say anything that was threatening? Did you say, I wish him harm, or I want to bang his head or bloody his nose? Was anything of such nature, or to the government itself, that it should fail?
I've never threatened anybody in my life. I've been married 41 years, never hit my wife one time. We've had a few disagreements, but I'm right, she's wrong, of course.
I'm glad you still have a sense of humor.
I get along with everybody, I think. I'm a school teacher, 15 years, taught science and math. Everybody loved my class. I don't understand it at all. It's just so bizarre. I think they're just...
Well, let me ask you this question. This is the question I want to ask. Because there was a case, I think, in either Iowa or someplace in the mid to west, where a church for 6 years was under the investigation of the government for the same thing that you're referencing of not withholding employee taxes. And finally, there was a standoff at that church, a physical standoff with the ATF, the FBI, and it ended in a very brutal way, and the church was confiscated. So yours, but usually when you get into the political realm of such activities, and start promoting the fact that churches should not pay taxes because of their tax, whatever reason that can be given, then the government sweeps down on you. For instance, right now, our Sharpton owes nearly $5 million in taxes, but has not stated that taxes should not be paid. At least I haven't heard him. And I don't think the government's going to do anything to him. I don't think they're going to arrest him. I don't think they're going to force him to sell what little property he does have to compensate the government. So what I've known in these cases, did you in any way promote as a doctrine or as a policy politically that taxes should not be paid to the government?
Oh, absolutely not. I believe everybody should obey the law. If you owe a tax, you should certainly pay it. Our country was founded by tax protesters throwing the tea in the harbor, and I'm very glad they did it. Okay, and we consider them patriots and put their faces on our dollar bills these days. But I am not a tax protester, never have been. I think you should render to Caesar what is Caesar's, but they never quote the rest of the verse. You should also render to God what is God's. The church you're referring to is Indianapolis Baptist Temple. Pastor Greg Dixon. He is still very active. You may want to interview him. He's a good friend of mine. His phone number, he's down in Central Florida, is 317-414-3478. 317-414-3478. Greg Dixon, it was his church. They came after the standoff. They bulldozed the church. It was a sad day in American history. But that's what happened.
Is Greg Dixon, he was not arrested, was he, or was he? Did this matter go to trial?
I don't think he spent time in prison. He's like 82 years old, but still very active in this battle of the government wanting to control, churches, which is they certainly do in other like communist countries. And in Nazi Germany, the Christians faced this same issue when Hitler came to power. The German church split right down the middle into the confessing church and the German Christians. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, famous Christian during that era, led the group that said, look, the church does not belong to Adolf Hitler. It belongs to Jesus Christ. And so in communist China today, there are two very different churches. There's the Three Self, government-controlled church, and there's the Free House Church in China. It's been all through history a battle like this, and It's not a battle I want to get into. I just want to go preach and leave me alone.
Well, because you would be a candidate to be released under the federal statutes of your sentencing shortly, but now they are leveling a new charge against you for the less pending file that you made after being advised by your inmate, fellow inmate in New Hampshire, and which would have prevented them from being able to seize the property because of a litigation still going forward. How is it that informing the public of that becomes mail fraud? I don't understand that. Make that plain first, please.
I can't make it plain because I don't think anybody can comprehend it. First of all, the mail fraud statutes are bizarre. You could arrest anybody for anything under that. How do you prove somebody mailed a letter as opposed to carried it across the state lines? And why does this become a crime? And exactly why does the federal government is there a federal...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
I think what they don't want people to know is they've created federal zones where they call New York state is very different than the state of New York. And I don't understand all that, but I know they've created federal zones just so they can claim that it's federal property. I certainly wouldn't. I don't give it a crime at all anyway, but I wouldn't do it on federal property. But see, it's all a big smoke and mirrors thing, I think, to get people thinking that the whole United States is federal property and they have jurisdiction everywhere, when actually everybody's jurisdiction is limited to whatever the law allows them to have. Yeah, if you can understand the mail fraud, you're way ahead of me because I don't understand it. How?
Well, let me ask you this: was the filing in the state of South Carolina? I'm not sure where the property was, and if it was a federal district filing, did it prevent the IRS from actually selling the property because buyers would have been aware that there's a case pending against this property and it's in litigation and you can't receive ownership until this litigation has run its course? Was that effective? Was it posted to prevent the sale of the property?
No.
It was not posted.
No, there was no. A Liz pendant doesn't prevent anything. It just lets people know, hey, there's litigation pending. If you want to buy it, you can buy it, but it's still really in court. It's not like a lien, if I understand it right. A lien actually says, look, this title's no good, but a Liz pendant is just simply a public notice that there's litigation pending. And I was stuck in prison. I couldn't file anything. All I can do is ask somebody else to file something for me. So.
But then who filed it for you? Who filed the Liz pending for you if you were unable to file? How did you get it filed?
I do not know who filed it.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
I'm sure the government will bring that out at trial, who actually carried it down to the office, because I still do not know who did that. That I have to wait until after trial before my attorney says, don't discuss that. Let's see what happens. I don't know what'll turn out.
Well, we certainly understand. We certainly understand that everything cannot be discussed, as this matter is now pending before court, and information given out in a public way could harm the case. So we certainly understand. So now you're facing another 20 years after having served 99 months. You're facing another 20 years on only one charge of mail fraud. Is that right?
Oh yeah, there are 6 charges. So the 20 years just for one of them. I mean, I think it totals over 100 years they could give me.
So if they run consecutively, of course, if they run concurrently, then it's only.
You're right.
Yeah, because that's what they did with structuring charges. Now, what I want to know, has there been any appeal on the prayer that was alleged to have been a threat, or you were convicted as threatening an IRS agent? Has there been any appeal? Has there been any appeal on the 45 counts of structuring that took place over a series of years? And has there been any appeal on the matter of not withholding taxes or paying employees under the fact that they're independent contractors? Has there been any appeal on those 3 items that you have been sentenced on?
Yes, right after trial, we asked for our transcript of the trial, which you have to have. have to do an appeal at all. And we paid over $6,000 to get this transcript. It normally takes about 2 months to get a transcript of a trial of that length. It took 16 months to get mine, over a year to get my transcript after we paid for it. And then it had been altered. Someone had changed the transcript. That leaves only 2 logical options that I can think of. So we finally filed an appeal. People don't understand the American federal court system. Your chance of winning on appeal is now very, very close to 0. It used to be maybe different, but now nobody wins on appeal. After 1971, the Supreme Court decided there's some kind of case called about the finality of conviction. They said it's more important to uphold a conviction, even if it's wrong, because it makes the government look bad if they overturn a conviction. So if you lose at the lower court, your chance of getting it on appeal overturned is just about 0. Nearly 11,000 cases a year are filed at the Supreme Court. They only look at 65 of them. They will simply deny. Look up Supreme Court on the internet. All it'll say is one word behind 10,950 of the cases that were submitted. Just deny. It never says why. They don't even look at it.
Well, let me ask you. I don't know how much more time you have today, calling from the prison there. But whatever time is remaining, in what way can people listening to this broadcast today assist you?
Oh, that is a wonderful question. Thank you. Several things can be done. First of all, I think we need to pray, like Acts chapter 12 or in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. All Gideon had for weapons against the enemy that he came against him in Judges 7, all he had was light and noise. Shine a lot of light and make a lot of noise, and the enemy fights each other. I think if enough people contact Congress, at the lower court I have almost no chance of winning. They can convict a ham sandwich, and then you never win on appeal. But we need to pray that God intervenes and does in a great way. I prayed shortly after I went to prison. I said, Lord, would you please overturn this and make it national news? I want my reputation back. I didn't break any laws, certainly not deliberately. Well, a few weeks after, the U.S. attorney went down and seized the church bank account. Then a few weeks after that, he flew to Detroit to have sex with a 5-year-old, got off the airplane with a bottle of Vaseline and a doll, and was arrested. And he hung himself in his jail cell in Detroit. That was the U.S. attorney who came after me in this case. You can Google John David Roy Atchison and see all that. So I changed my prayer. I said, Lord,
you have 60 seconds remaining.
Now, on the matter of the Atchison case, the U.S. attorney, he was found to be a pedophile and was arrested for such. But did he seize your bank account, and has he seized property? What's the status of your financial holdings at present?
Well, my son started a new ministry, and he purchased everything, and he's continuing, doing a wonderful job. It's called Creation Today. And so he's running things. While I'm sitting in prison fighting this, he's doing fine. I do have time for one more call, brother. I can call back.
Yeah, please do.
Finish up, and I'll take your last question.
All right,
okay.
We'll take that last call as well. So we're just waiting for you to re-engage, and we'll find out about your son and how otherwise assistance can be given to you. And we want to know, since you've written 37 books, and since being in prison, others who may be facing similar kinds of problems, tax structure problems, may want to hear what would be the advice for them to be able to proceed as they are facing the IRS as well. But I can tell you that Al Sharpton, who owes $5 million in taxes, the government is not going to arrest him. They're not going to do that. And I think Al Sharpton's situation is different in as much as that at least he filed the taxes of withholding and into the trust estate. But if you don't file any taxes whatsoever, I think that is where the problems lie with what we're now experiencing with Dr. Dino Kent Hovind, is that he did not file And even if you owe taxes, is one thing to owe them as long as you didn't do anything illegal. And what we hear the charges here were, one was failure to file and paying people as independent contractors. And as a pastor of a church, I understand that process. You can pay people as independent contractors. However, it needs to be clear and distinguished that they are indeed that and not employees, because once they become employees, you have to pay the taxes to the government, but you don't have to pay the boy who mows the lawn. You don't have to pay his taxes or withholding taxes, or the person who repairs your air conditioner. They are indeed independent contractors. But if people are indeed if they are indeed employees of the church, you gotta pay those. You have to pay those withholding process taxes. Now, what happened with Kent Hovind in terms of how his taxes were structured is a matter that I suppose we'd have to read in a brief. But the other item, of course, is the structuring of taking certain amounts of money out of the bank. This law was put in place some time ago to keep drug traffickers from handling large sums of money, depositing and withdrawing large sums of money without the government being made aware of it. And so the cap on that was $10,000. You cannot take out more than $10,000 in one day's banking activity in cash. Now, you can write a check for $1 million, no problem, long as it's in check form, because that can always be traced. But cash, once it comes out of the bank, is very difficult to trace. So the government now put a cap on how much you can take out of the bank at any one time without having to answer what you're going to do with the money. The structuring charges, and there were 45 counts that Kent Hovind is stating that he has that he was charged with. Oh, do we have him yet? We don't have him as okay, all right. Well, we're waiting. I'm just the structuring charges, of course, 45 counts of that was where those kinds of transactions were taking place. We have one more opportunity to talk to Kent Hovind from the Santa Clara prison there in Florida, Santa Rosa. Let me get it right. And then we'll move on. Michael Massey should be chiming in sometime later on today. We have several items that we're going to cover in the final hour of the broadcast here today regarding Al Sharpton's newfound troubles that he has, in addition to the fact that we have launched a campaign of 70 million strong to get him fired from MSNBC. 2 police officers were shot last night up in the Bronx, up in the West Bronx, and I believe that the perpetrators were attempting to rob a convenience store up in the Bronx, and police officers answering their call. We're going to cover that. Mario Cuomo is being laid to rest today. Former governor, 3-term governor of the state of New York, has been eulogized today at the St. Ignatius Loyola Church on Park Avenue here in New York City, and just a ton of things that are going on that we want to try to cover. But we're thankful to be able to interview Kent Hovind today and to get his side of the story and to make it public as well so people can hear what has happened to him. We're unable to take calls for Kent at this time, but we do want to be able to record his statements as he's calling from the from prison.
Global Tel-Link prepaid call from.
And this is indeed what we would refer to as a prison visit by way of the Madden report, if you will. So the prison operator now is putting the call together. And soon, in just a few moments, Kent will be back on the line, and we're trying to wrap everything up about how he can be assisted, how his son is now running this new ministry, and was able to purchase the property that was to be sold.
This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
All right. Kent, do we have you now?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Thank you, brother.
All right. Since this is our last session, this time is very precious. I want you to sum up. First of all, you have led 700 men to Jesus Christ while incarcerated. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, sir. At least that many.
And you've written 37 books since you've been incarcerated. Is that right as well?
That is correct.
All right. That's just about a book every 2 or 3 months. All right. How can anyone listening to you find out, other than at 2Peter3.com, more information about who you are, the valuable teaching you've done regarding creation versus evolution, and your legal problems if they decide that they want to assist you in some way? What can they do, and how should they proceed?
Okay, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, or so I've been told. I've done several interviews with different folks like you, and I really appreciate you doing this, brother. The website freekent.com, somebody just put up. I've never seen it, but just FREEKENT.com. There's one that's been up for years called freehovind.com. That's HOVIND, like David Hovind. They have over 20,000 signatures, is what I heard. I think that there's people, if they just would watch my video series and then tell others about it. We've had many, probably way over 100,000 people get saved watching those videos over the last 20-some years. I got 30 letters last night in the mail, many of which telling about somebody getting saved watching those videos that were made, 10 years ago. In my video series, I cover all of the questions about how old is the Earth, where do dinosaurs fit in? That's the website, drdino.com. And so it answers so many scientific and biblical questions that people say, wow, there's no longer a doubt. God's Word is true. So if...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
While I'm in prison, if other people can spread those videos around, and they're not copyrighted, we've always encouraged people, get them, copy them, give them to your lost neighbors or loved ones, and you'll be shocked at the results they have. It's not because I did it, it's God's Word and God's information. But that's something people can do that would bless my soul if they would just keep spreading those videos. You can get them on Dr. Dino, or creationtoday.org is my son's website. Please keep that going. I think people need to pray. I believe my case is a classic example of all the things that can go wrong when the IRS starts targeting a conservative ministry, and the Congress needs to step in and look at this entire case from the root to the treetop. What happened? Who changed my trial? Who changed the trial transcript? This changing of the jury instructions.
Well, if I can just interject right here, Kent, there over the last year, back in 2014 and going back to 2013, that the IRS director, Lois Lerner, has been publicly demonstrated to have been nefarious in her approach of qualifying not-for-profit organizations, namely the Tea Party political group, from accessing not-for-profit status that they might go forward and do political campaigning. And the records that would follow up on how these various groups were targeted to have their applications delayed or denied allegedly have been lost. So the IRS, and I'm sure you're very much aware of the proverb or the statement that the power to tax is the power to destroy. And the taxes in America and this tax structure, the tax department, the IRS, can be used as a police force to put down opposition to the government. And the way the tax code is structured, just like you said, like a bowl of spaghetti, is so convoluted in so many ways that the tax structure can indict a ham sandwich for having failed to do taxes the appropriate way, because who knows this monster called the IRS? And I thought I would put that in because recently that IRS has, under this administration, has just gone off the charts in terms of how they are hounding people. But I won't interrupt you any further as you're trying to tell people how they can help you.
Well, yeah, I am not, it's not my goal in life to go fight the IRS. I think they should simply be abolished. It was created in 1933. It's a private corporation out of Puerto Rico, Delaware Corporation. It's a tax collection agency. You can look at their incorporation papers and what they're supposed to do. They're originally, I don't know if they are now, they were not part of the government. It's not my job to go fight them. I think people need to understand who they are and what they do. And if you fall under their jurisdiction, you should obey their laws. Definitely. I'm not fighting them. Never have been. I'm simply exposing, like in the Matrix, and here's the truth. And boy, they don't want the truth to be known. That is the last thing they would like. They're going to make me swear next month, February 9th, when I go to trial, if it goes to trial, swear to tell the truth and the whole truth. Well, I'll be glad to. I have nothing to hide, but I can assure you that's the last thing they want to hear is the whole truth. They don't want the jury to hear the whole truth. So people can help spread the whole truth. Because even if I end up going to prison for 5,000 years or die or something like that, I want the gospel to go forward. That's been my heart throb for 46 years, is to get people saved. I led 2 guys to the Lord in here New Year's Day a couple days ago, and I've been discipling them. We have Bible study in my room 4 times a day, plus Q&A time throughout the day after that. So all I've ever wanted to do for 46 years is to serve and please the Lord, win souls, draw others to Him. And that's what my teaching on creation, dinosaurs, etc. does. And so if people would get those videos and please spread them around, because it's just an amazing witnessing tool.
Well, let me just interject once again. Let me interject once again because I don't know when the prison system is going to cut you off. I know that Dr. Wiley Drake, I spoke to him yesterday. He'd been kind of out of the loop for a couple of days. He's going to interview you as well, and he's going to post up, try to get you on an interview on his broadcast. He knows you quite well and understands the dilemma. And I also want to give thanks to your friends that are supporting you, Rudy Davis being one down in Dallas, and you have another friend named Ernie and several people that are liaisons for you. There's an entire list of people whose names I don't have in front of me right now, but I have seen that list and their efforts to help you. I want to thank them for bringing this information to the Manning Report so that we would have the privilege of interviewing you as we have done today. And we're praying to get your interview on several other major broadcast venues across America. So you can, with respect to your first request of how we can help you, we will be praying for you, and we believe that God will answer those prayers. But we do want to commend Ernie and Rudy Davis and a host of others whose names I just don't have before me right now for their efforts in assisting you as well. And our prayers will go out for your wife, who suffered a horrible tragedy of having to spend some time in prison as well. So you can take the last few minutes to sum up whatever how you want to sum up.
Well, yes, sir. Thank you so much. I think all through history, Congress or leadership has changed very slowly as a result of obvious injustice. People rise up and say, hold it, this isn't right. Let's change the whole thing. That's what happened with slavery 120 years ago. Fix this problem, And so I think my case is a classic example of some of the fundamental things that need to be changed. Like, the prison system should be changed completely. In the Bible, you either got a fine or a beating or executed. God never authorizes prisons at all.
You're right, sir. You're absolutely right. You are astute to point that out. There are no prisons in the Bible.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
Except for until we get to the New Testament, I should say. When the New Testament has prisons, but prior to that, under the laws of Moses, there are no prisons authorized.
Well, the only prisons, even in the New Testament, were by the heathen, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Greeks. God never authorizes this. This is cruel to the wrong people. You are going to buy my supper tonight. What did you do wrong? It's bizarre. I think Congress should immediately pass laws to say no one involved in law enforcement, Congress, legislators, judges, should be allowed to own stock in the prison system and profit from this. Right now they do. They profit tremendously. The longer they lock people up, the more money they get in their secondary investments. That ought to be illegal. They should change the stupid structuring laws. They should certainly change the mail fraud laws. They should look at, I think if Congress got enough pressure, especially with this new, more conservative Congress coming in, they should investigate this from the top to the bottom and call me in to testify. I would like to testify before Congress and explain. You talk about targeting a conservative ministry. I've been over backwards trying to find out, what does this IRS want? What am I doing wrong? Show me what law I'm breaking. Instead, they just come with guns drawn and throw you in prison. So they should right away cut the Justice Department funds. They've already spent $250,000 on this new investigation They already got their money. They already sold the property. No harm was done. Nothing happened. Nothing. Nothing. Nobody was harmed. Why would you spend $250,000? This Pensacola branch especially has got to be looked at. Everybody ought to be yelling at Congress. Would you do something? They pay the salaries. Shut off the funds. Judges are supposed to be impeached by Congress if they don't rule, if they don't govern with good behavior. They very rarely do that. Judges just rule with impunity. It's not my job to judge the judge, but I think Congress should look at a case and say, well, maybe this judge needs to be impeached if they don't follow the Constitution or follow the laws.
Well, I don't know what your clock is going to say in terms of when they're going to cut you off, but let's just get one thing clear. Kent Hovind has never advocated any violence or aggression against any IRS tax agent. Is that correct?
Or anybody for that matter.
All right. Number two.
I'm against that totally.
And number two, Kent Hovind has never advocated nor promoted as a policy that taxes should not be paid. Indeed, has stated that if you owe a tax, you should pay that tax. Render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. A quote from the scriptures of Jesus regarding taxes to Caesar, and unto God what belongs to God. Therefore, you have never advocated in any way not paying taxes to the government.
That is correct. There are hundreds of different kinds of taxes. There's a tax on alcohol. I've never paid that because I've never tasted alcohol. I've never had a drop in my life. So am I avoiding a tax? Yeah, I'm avoiding a tax by not drinking alcohol. I'm not evading. Nothing illegal. There's a difference between avoiding and evading. So yeah, there are lots of taxes. To my knowledge, I've paid every single tax that I owe. I've never paid an alcohol tax because I don't drink alcohol. I've never paid a tobacco tax.
And then finally, on the issue of the structuring charges, the money withdrawn from your account was for the purpose of paying bills or making acquisitions. There was no drug dealing done. There was nothing nefarious that was done. You simply withdrew money for the purpose of paying bills. You did not you were not involved in any way of using those funds for any kind of illegal purposes.
Correct. Nothing. This was church money put in a church bank account withdrawn for church bills. If you withdraw over $10,000 in one day, the bank fills out a form. Okay. I don't care. They can fill out a form for every dollar.
All right. You're beginning to.
It's not my responsibility.
Your connection is beginning to get very, very weak, and I'm not sure how much longer they're going to allow you to talk there from the prison, but we will continue to hold until the last second of what they are going to afford you be fulfilled. So the things that you have been charged with and now served the time for, because you paid your debts, well, you have served the time according to the sentence that they've given to you, but now you're facing at least another 120 charges on one filing that you did regarding a property.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I'll give you the time to wrap everything up.
Yep.
If they want to write to you, how can they write to you? If people want to write letters to you, what can they write?
Sure, they could write to me, Kent Hovind, Hovind, at Post Office Box 7129, Milton, Milton, like a mill town, Milton, Florida, 32572. If they want to help with legal defense, they can call Ernie Land. His phone number is 850-419-0955. 850-419-0955. Ernie Land is handling what little bit of legal defense funds we have. And they can certainly pray that God gets the great glory through all this. That's what I want. So, brother, thank you so much for letting me come on. I have nothing to hide from the truth. I want to tell the truth. So please spread it around.
All right, well, this broadcast is being spread at present, and we're going to further enhance it as it goes forward. That has ended the call with Kent Hovind. We're disconnected and disengaged. We thank you for allowing this last hour of the Manning Report to be consumed with the interview from prison of Kent Hovind, and also got started during our Trust in the Lord hour. We thank all of our listeners for allowing this preempting of our regular broadcasting. so that we could have this interview. I think this is the first for the Manning Report to do a live interview from a prison and with a prisoner. So, well, I guess as they used to say many years ago, there's first time for everything. And this was a first and a unique first as well. And again, we want to thank Ernie Land and Rudy Davis, Dr. Wiley Drake, and Coach Dave Dobbenmeyer, and others who are very much aware of what has happened with Kent Hovind. We're going to take a brief break. Want to inform Michael Massey he can chime in at any time he wants. He's normally on at this hour, but we'll be back with this break's going to take us up to the top of the hour.